Hi everyone, my name is Miss Young and you're watching a video on the themes that can be found in the short film Bruce Lee Played Badminton 2. Now before we begin, it is highly recommended for you to have seen the short film in order for all the ideas that I'll be discussing to make sense. Now let's get started. Now first off, let's begin with the lesson objective. Hopefully by the end of this video, you'll be able to discuss the themes of BLPBT critically with the use of relevant examples. Now, it is extremely important for you to be able to back up your ideas with relevant examples, and this skill will be relevant in the sections of your essay as well as your oral examination in ELD. Now, let's move on. Now, our first theme is stereotyping. Now, stereotyping can be defined as a simplified act of categorizing people based on certain criteria, be it their religion, gender, race, culture, or whatsoever. So, in most cases, from what we've learned in ELD, the act of stereotyping is not a good thing. It's negative. However, if you have done psychology or you've read on certain psychological understandings about stereotyping, it is actually a normal response that people do in order for them to make sense of the world. Now, however, if you don't manage your stereotyping, in often cases, it will become a bad thing. Now, let's look at a couple of stereotypes that can be found in this short film. The first one will be the idea that badminton is a game for Asians. Where do we get this idea? Well, we can actually back it up from the scene where Nick's dad refers to it as a sport for the smaller folk. This is reference to Asian people, as it requires less strength. It is not a sport for men. And he quickly continued by saying, at least not for men like us. Us meaning that the fact that they are Caucasians and the fact that they are physically bigger and manlier, they shouldn't be playing a weak game like badminton. Okay, so that is clearly a stereotype. All right. Next, the idea of what it means to be real Australians, and in this context, is the idea that real Australians are basically white people. All right. Now, this is a stereotype that is, in my opinion, completely untrue. And I'm sure that throughout ELD, you will be having this sort of discussions with your lecturers or in class. Now, how can we back it up, this stereotype? Well, it's from the scene where, Nick's dad felt uncomfortable with the idea that they are the only Anglo-Saxon family in the whole neighborhood. And even went as far to refer to the Hunts as half mutts because they're not pure white. All right, so that supports the idea of this stereotype right here. Next, we have the stereotype that fat people cannot play sports, or in this case, badminton. All right, you can see how people around in Nick's life, they underestimate Nick's ability to play badminton well, just because based on his body size. All right. Now, moving on, let's look at the second theme, which is discrimination. In most cases, discrimination is a response or an effect of the theme stereotyping, or racism, whatsoever. This is more of an effect, right? Because we stereotype people, we cannot accept for who they are, we discriminate. What does it mean by discriminating? It's basically the act of ostracizing, okay? Certain groups of people from certain activities or topics or whatsoever, right? Now, where can we find forms of discrimination in this film? First off, again, I'm reusing this idea that, the stereotype that badminton is a game for Asians, because of the idea that it is only supposedly reserved for Asians, okay, we can see how during the game, Nick was, he faced some sort of discrimination, okay, from the audience as well as his competitor, when he eggs Nick by saying, "Good luck, Chuck Norris," okay, during his first game for the competition. Now, this is a clear indication that, the competitor who happens to be Asian does not believe in Nick's ability to play the sport well, because of his race. And how do we know this? Well, if you look at the reference here, this pop culture reference called Chuck Norris, if you do a quick Google, he's basically a typical white man with red hair. So there's a bunch of stereotypes attached to that. So the fact that he didn't bother to even address Nick by his actual name and straight away go to a stereotypical white figure, that shows that, you know, it is not the skill that they're looking at for Nick, it's just his race. So, and that form of sarcasm is, you can argue that it is a form of discrimination against Nick, okay, during the competition. Moving on, next, again, with the idea that fat people cannot play sports, okay. There is a form of underestimation for Nick, okay, and well, even his own family does not believe in his ability to perform well. Nick sort of, you know, broke that stereotype and again proved his discriminators wrong by playing really well throughout the competition, despite his size. Okay. Now, lastly, this is our last theme, which is identity. Now, identity is a rather complex idea. It is something, you know, that is important for all of us. For some of us, it is a lifelong journey to figure out who we are. Some people are more comfortable. On the other hand, some people are more comfortable of like using what is available to them, or some people are very open to subscribing to the values or indicators that they grew up with to form their own understanding of the self. Now, some of the factors that, you know, contributes to identity would be your gender, your religion, your culture, your nationality, your political outlook. So there's so many, you know, factors to identity. But what makes it difficult is that what happens when a person, you know, breaks away from their own factors that come from, you know, their own culture or from birth, and try to go outside of the box, all right? And in this case, we can see that for Nick, he admires people outside of his own culture. You can see that a lot of his role models are people who happen to not share his own, you know, native culture. They don't even happen to be Australians. And you can see how from his admiration, it shapes his own worldview, right? The fact that he is willing to play badminton, the fact that he has all these values of, you know, hard work, all right, to have grit, to break stereotypes. These are very much inspired by his role models like Bruce Lee, Lee Chong Wei, Lin Dan, all right? And that's that. So my challenge for you right now at the end of this video is that, are you able to find a particular scene to match to my description of the idea of identity from this film? I hope you can find this. It's actually quite obvious. If you are able to point it out, that's great. I look forward to see you discussing or justifying this in class, or even in your essay, or even in your oral exam. That is all for today. Thank you so much and all the best.